Hello class, welcome to lesson 25 in module 4 where we're looking at multi-step equations in the real world. So we are going to split these notes up into two so that you can pause and copy. Here are the first half of the notes and the second half of the notes. Okay, so like I said, today's lesson is module 4, lesson 25, multi-step equations in the real world. So in today's lesson, we're going to be combining a few things we know already about multi-step equations, about dependent and independent variables, about creating expressions, and about modeling different sets of data. So when we're solving these multi-step equations, step 1, very similar to lesson 24, step 1, we need to read the scenario and create an equation. Now in this example, we see a story problem. Jackson started the year with 7 ties. Every month he got 2 new ones. Create an equation to represent the pattern for a given number of months. This is very similar to the types of problems we saw in lesson 24, where we had to create an equation from the story problems, or from the data that it gives us. Okay, so here's our equation. The t equals 2 times m, or 2m, plus 7. In this scenario, t represents the total number of ties, and m represents the number of months. And if we remember these variables between dependent and independent, the independent variable is in the equation, that's m. The dependent variable depends on what the independent is, it's the solution, so that's t for the total number of ties. Okay, and then here we have 7 is the number of ties he started with, that's why we're adding plus 7, basically no matter how many months we're talking about. So the equation looks like t equals 2 times the number of months plus 7. Now, step 2, we can plug in any number for m, any amount of months. So we can put anything in here for m in that equation. Or what we're really learning how to do today is how to model these equations. Alrighty? So we learned how to do a table during lesson 24, so we'll do a quick review on that. So the table is the one here on the left side of your notes, and I'm going to rewrite the equation in case we forgot. Okay, we have the number of ties equals 2 times the number of months plus 7, because that's what he started with. Okay, so if we had, let's say we're talking about 1 month, that means 2 times 1 plus 7. So 2 times 1 is 2, 2 plus 7 is 9, so t would equal 9. And that's what we see here in our table. 1 month equals 9 total ties. Okay, if we were to move down a step and we looked at maybe he had 2 months of tie purchasing, it would look like 2 ties times 2 months plus 7. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 7 is 11. That's why here we see after 2 months he's got 11 ties. Now we keep going on and on and on, and we notice each month he adds 2 more ties, so we can count by 2 all the way down. Here we jumped all the way from 5 to 10, but if we plug in 10 for m, that's 10 times 2 plus 7, which is 27. Anyway, so we know how to do the table. That is kind of a review from lesson 24. The new part that we're going to be learning in lesson 25 is how to take this information from our table and put it in a graph form for the model. So here we're going to look at, just do a quick review of our data. The independent variable, our first value is the number of months, so what we use for m in our equation. The dependent variable, or the solution, is going to be the total number of ties, or the t in our equation. And if you have forgotten, our equation looks like this. T equals 2m plus 7. Okay, so let's take this data and place it in our graph here. So instead of columns, a first column and a second column, we're going to be looking at axes. We have our x-axis moving horizontally and our y-axis moving vertically. Now, whenever we take information in a table, and place it from the table into the graph, we always want our independent variable to be our x-axis and our dependent variable to run along our y-axis. So here, if you notice, we're taking our independent variable number of months and placing it down here as the title of our x-axis. So first column becomes the x-axis, number of months, independent variable. The second column, or the dependent variable, becomes our y-axis. It's labeled here on our vertical axis. The total number of ties is the dependent variable. So we're taking all the data from the second column and placing it along our y-axis. Now, once we've got our axes labeled here, y-axis being total number of ties, the dependent variable, x-axis being the number of months, independent variable, the real challenge only is figuring out what you're going to count by moving along each axis. So as you move down this column, we're just adding 1 month at a time, because we want to know how many ties he has each month, one at a time, so we're just going to count by ones. So 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and so on. Here along our y-axis, however, we need to identify what are we counting by. Now that's a little easier said than done. As we look at our table here, we know that as we jump 1 at a time on this side, we jump by 2 on this side. So 9 plus 2 is 11, 11 plus 2 is 13. And we know that from our equation because every time we add a value to m, so if we have 1 for m, 1 times 2 is 2. If we put 2 for m, 2 times 2 is 4. Place 3 for m, 3 times 2 is 6. So we're skip counting by 2. So because as we multiply every value for m by 2, that just means we're counting by 2. So we know that the interval, or the space between each of these tick marks on the y-axis, needs to be 2. However, the real trick is to figure out what do we start counting by. Now we know from our equation up here that he starts with 7 ties. Okay, so before we even throw in any number for m, if we have month number 0, like let's say we don't even count this first month, but we even go back before that to month 0, we know no matter what, he's going to have 7 ties because that's what he started with. Okay, so if we place 0 in for m, 0 times 2 is 0, and 0 plus 7 is 7. So we know that no matter what, the smallest value of ties he can have, smallest amount of ties has to be 7. So it doesn't go below 7, which means our y-axis starts at 7. So in 1 month, it's going to be 7 plus 2. In 2 months, it's going to be 7 plus 4. In 3 months, it's going to be 7 plus 6, and so on and so on and so on, increasing by 2 as the months increase by 1. All right, now we will practice this a bunch in class with our classwork, but it is as simple as taking our independent value and title along the x-axis and our dependent value and title along the y-axis and placing the necessary points where they meet up. So that is all of the notes for lesson 25. Thank you and goodbye.